The silence lasted less than a second. But in Formula One, a second is enough to expose everything. Max Verstappen was asked a simple question about the RB22 after Barcelona. Nothing confrontational, nothing dramatic. Just a routine probe about where Red Bull stands heading into the new era. And instead of the usual blunt confidence, instead of the familiar calm certainty, there was hesitation. A pause, then carefully chosen words. Not defensive, not negative, just restrained. That was the moment Red Bull didn't want anyone to notice. Because when Max Verstappen stops speaking in absolutes, something underneath the car isn't settled yet. And that's the RB22 problem Formula One isn't ready to talk about. Not because it's embarrassing, not because it's catastrophic, but because it's structural. And Max accidentally gave it away. Everyone watching Barcelona testing focused on lap times, sector splits, and headline charts. Who was fastest? Who ran the most laps? Who looked comfortable? But the most important signal didn't come from the stopwatch. It came from what Red Bull refused to show. This wasn't a team flexing, this wasn't a team chasing headlines, this was a team protecting information. And Red Bull only protects information when margins are thinner than they want rivals to realise. The RB22 didn't arrive trying to dominate, it arrived trying to confirm. That distinction matters more than anything else you saw on track. Because dominant teams test aggressively, they push edges, they explore extremes, they stress systems publicly because they already know where the limits are. Validation teams do the opposite. They run clean, they run controlled, they minimize variables, they hide instability. And Barcelona was validation mode. Which brings us back to Max. Max Verstappen is not a driver who softens language for public relations. He doesn't sugarcoat, he doesn't sell hope. When things are good, he says they're good. When they're not, he doesn't pretend otherwise. And when he says there's quite a bit of work to do, that phrase carries more weight than any lap record. Because work doesn't mean pace, it means understanding, it means alignment, it means something still doesn't behave consistently. That's the danger. The RB22 problem isn't about being slow, it's about being unpredictable. And unpredictability is lethal in a regulation reset. Here's the part most fans missed. The 2026 rules didn't just change engines or aerodynamics. They changed how cars transition between states, energy deployment, harvesting, load transfer, electrical contribution under throttle. Everything now happens in layers instead of sequences. And Red Bull's historical advantage, clarity, is harder to maintain in layered systems. For years, Red Bull built cars with narrow operating windows that punished rivals but rewarded precision. Once inside the window, the performance was brutal. The issue now is that the window itself moves depending on energy state, speed range, and corner phase. And Max felt that. You could see it in his driving. Clean inputs, conservative exits, no wild corrections, no aggression early in runs. This wasn't Max hunting lap time. This was Max mapping behavior. And when the best driver on the grid is mapping instead of attacking, it tells you the platform still isn't fully understood. But it's just testing, people say. Testing is never just testing for Red Bull. This is the team that used to arrive at new eras and immediately set references even while hiding pace. The team that looked bored while everyone else scrambled. The team that treated early sessions like formalities. Barcelona didn't look like that. Barcelona looked cautious. And caution is unfamiliar territory for Red Bull. Here's where the story gets uncomfortable. The RB22 isn't struggling with outright performance. It's struggling with interaction. The way systems talk to each other under different loads, states and conditions. The way energy deployment influences balance. The way drivability shifts mid-corner depending on electrical contribution. That's not a problem you solve with a wing change. That's a philosophical problem. Max never said this directly. He didn't have to. His phrasing did the work for him. Optimizing the package. Still understanding behaviors. Step by step, those are not words of dominance. Those are words of calibration. And calibration takes time. Now ask yourself something honestly. When was the last time Red Bull needed time? That's the part Formula One doesn't want to confront yet. Because the RB22 is being built around Max's adaptability. Around his ability to feel micro changes. To compensate for inconsistency. To extract performance even when the platform isn't perfect. That sounds like a strength until it becomes a liability. Because when your car relies on the driver to solve instability, you're not building a dominant platform. You're borrowing performance. And borrowed performance always comes with interest. Think about it. If the RB22 only fully unlocks in Max's hands, what happens when conditions shift? When reliability margins tighten? When energy strategies are adjusted for race distance instead of single runs? Suddenly, that adaptability becomes stress, and stress reveals limits. This is where rivals quietly get excited. Because Ferrari and Mercedes weren't chasing peak performance in Barcelona, they were chasing repeatability, robustness, systems working lap after lap without surprises. Ferrari ran mileage, a lot of it. Mercedes validated long runs and correlation. They weren't flashy, they weren't fast, but they were consistent. Red Bull wasn't chasing consistency yet, they were chasing confirmation. That tells you everything about where each team believes its risk lies. Now here's the question that splits the grid. Would you rather have the fastest car or the most predictable one? Because championships are won by the second more often than fans like to admit. And here's where Max accidentally exposed the deeper truth. He didn't express concern. He didn't express confidence. He expressed caution. That's rare, and it matters. Because caution in a driver like Max isn't emotional. It's technical. It means something hasn't been solved yet. Now let's escalate this. Because the RB22 problem doesn't exist in isolation. It exists in a Red Bull without Adrian Newey actively shaping solutions. For years, uncertainty didn't matter because Newey could outthink it. If a system misbehaved, he'd re-architect the concept. If correlation drifted, he'd realign philosophy. Now Red Bull has to manage complexity instead of redesigning it. Management problems don't show up on timing sheets, they show up as compromises. And compromises are where dominance dies quietly. Here's what nobody is talking about. The RB22 doesn't yet like being pushed across multiple operating states in a single lap. Entry behavior changes when energy deployment shifts. Exit traction varies depending on recovery. Mid-corner balance isn't static, that's fine on low fuel. It's dangerous over race distance. And Max knows it, that's why he isn't leaning on hype. That's why he isn't selling certainty. That's why his tone changed. Because he understands what happens when drivers are forced to drive around the car instead of through it. Now pause here and be honest. If this were any other driver, would you trust the platform? Or are you trusting Max? Because that distinction matters more than Red Bull fans want to admit. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Is this a crisis? No. Is it a warning? Absolutely. Because the RB22 isn't failing, it's incomplete. And incomplete cars lose championships in the margins. Margins like strategy flexibility. Margins like tyre life under load. Margins like energy deployment consistency in traffic. These are the areas that don't make headlines, but decide titles. Now here's where the fear kicks in. Red Bull doesn't lose championships on Sundays. They lose them on Thursdays. In meeting rooms, in compromises, in decisions to protect systems instead of exploit them. And right now, the RB22 still requires protection. Max didn't say it, but his driving did, and his words confirmed it. Now let me ask you something that should genuinely split the comments. Do you think Red Bull is hiding a problem, or buying time to solve it? Because those are two very different stories. One leads to another era of dominance. The other leads to a collapse no one sees coming until it's too late. This is the real danger the RB22 represents. Not that it's slow, not that it's flawed, but that it's not finished. And unfinished cars don't stay ahead forever. Now here's the part that reframes everything. If Red Bull solves this quickly, they're terrifying. If they don't, Ferrari and Mercedes don't need miracles. They just need patience. Because when Red Bull has to open the RB22 up for reliability margins, energy management, or drivability safety, the illusion cracks. And that's when the field compresses. That's when Max's advantage becomes smaller than people expect. And that's when championships turn into wars instead of walkovers. Now before this ends, think about this carefully. Max Verstappen didn't reveal a flaw, he revealed uncertainty. And in Formula 1, uncertainty is the most dangerous thing of all. If you enjoyed this level of breakdown, you already know this channel isn't about hype. It's about what the data, the behavior, and the silence actually mean. And the next video you should watch explains why Red Bull's biggest threat in 2026 isn't Ferrari or Mercedes. It's the thing they can't fix with upgrades. That's where this story goes next.